How we doing today? Hopefully you can hear me, at least, if you can't see me. But can you see me? I don't know. I'm still waiting for the image to pop up on the phone. There we go. Can you see me? Turn on the volume. Forgot to do that. All right. So once again, we have another Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles SUPER7 Ultimates unboxing, and this is Raphael. So we are at the end of these. I will have more in the future at some point, but this is the last one that I have to open up for you right now. There's that sewer manhole cover with Raphael with the very gritted teeth. He's the only one who had teeth all the way across the mouth in that first vintage wave of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Playmates way back in 1989. You can see on either side of him, he's got his sigh. But yeah, he was always the angriest turtle in the comic. So that's why he winds up being the angriest looking turtle in the figure. I have mentioned before how Raphael might be my favorite head sculpt out of those initial offerings. It was either him or Donatello. I think him and Donatello had the best head sculpts. I'm surprised I didn't mention this. At least I don't remember mentioning this in the Leonardo unboxing, is that Leonardo out of the original Playmates figures, I kind of felt like was the weakest head sculpt because he had those sad looking eyes. He just looked sad to me. And the Four Horsemen and SUPER7 did manage to improve the head sculpt and give him eyes that weren't quite as sad in that version. So I did like that Leonardo head sculpt. It was true enough to the original toy and fixed the problem that I had with it. But yeah, and then there's the I always have that upside down, the Ultimates logo at the top, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle logo on the back. And of course, Raphael's just my favorite of the turtles anyway, so that's why I always save him for last. And there he is in the package with a whole bunch of accessories. We're very familiar with this this packaging by now, with the green bricks, the turtle shell graffiti up here with the Ninja Turtle logo on it, the power box with the turtle logo stickers on it, SUPER7, Nickelodeon, Raphael, the witty voice of the Turtles. Yes, because they had to tone him down a little bit on the cartoon. He was still, I think, the angriest of the Turtles, but that's a sliding scale. He was still, this is probably the most cheerful version of Raphael in the cartoon. But it still says on the back, when we read the bio, Raphael is a hot-headed and the most opinionated, impulsive, and restless Ninja Turtle. Raphael loves nothing more than to test himself in battle and trains for sheer enjoyment. He's usually the one to leap into action, and it's nearly impossible to get him to back down. So, yeah, one of my favorite moments that he had on the original cartoon was when he's threatening Baxter Stockman, and he says to him, "You'd better, or else I'm gonna get sarcastic." And that was enough to frighten Baxter into spilling the beans. Nothing beats cutting wit. So Raphael wasn't exactly known for his wit in the original comic book, but it did kind of become a feature of the character later on. The sarcasm kind of became a thing, and I really liked Rob Paulson's portrayal of Raphael on the original cartoon. That's still the voice I think of. I think I'd mentioned, even though I don't want to say he did a bad job. I'm not trying to talk smack about Rob Paulson, who's a legendary voice actor. Certainly mean no disrespect, but I always thought it was an odd thing on the 2012 cartoon how they had him playing Donatello. It's like if you made a Justice League cartoon and you get Kevin Conroy to be on it, and you had Kevin Conroy doing the voice of Superman. What are you doing here? Kevin Conroy's Batman. All right, so we got the weapons tree here. And this is, I think, a later release of Raphael. I got him on Big Bad Toy Store, and he was fairly inexpensive. And it says on there, like, when I ordered it, it says, like, variant or something, I think. So I'm pretty sure this is a later release. But here's the weapons tree, and you can see it's all molded in brown plastic. And it seems to be a different color from the other weapons trees, because you can see it's a much darker brown and a much more brownish brown than the one that came with Michelangelo. It's a very sort of milk chocolate sort of brown, whereas the ones that came with Donatello and Leonardo, those were a little more sort of caramel colored, or caramel colored, if you prefer. I don't really have a preference. Sometimes I say caramel, sometimes I say caramel. I don't know. So it's not a very consistent shade of brown between the weapons trees on these figures, but I kind of wonder if I'd gotten the original release of Raphael, if it would have been a little closer to what we have with Leonardo and Donatello. And Michelangelo was the last of these to come out anyway. But you can see he's got two sai. He's got the two fist daggers, the Qatar type fist dagger, and the more pizza shaped fist dagger, the Kama, and he's got two throwing stars. And they are all these extra weapons inside of the weapons tree are kind of arranged the same way, but for whatever reason they've got the sai at the top and the bottom rather than to the sides. I'm guessing because it's such a short weapon would be the reason. And then they got the throwing stars moved over to the sides. So, you know, the other weapons trees, I think you could probably just have them kind of leaning against the ground, because they do have the stand part on there, so it should stand up that way. But with Raphael, you can't do that as one solid piece because it's got the sai on the very bottom. So that's not going to be a possibility with that, unfortunately. Now, that having been said, most people seem to prefer to just kind of leave those leave those on the tree. I don't see a whole lot of people pulling them off the tree. And there are a whole bunch of hands on here. And I think he's got one more set of hands than we usually see on these figures. And I got a suspicion why, but we'll have a look at those. We'll figure that out. But I think I know why. So first of all, he's got these two hands that are kind of what I call the gesturing hands. So they're kind of a little more splayed open. And then moving on, we have a set of gripping hands. Ah, yeah, but look at there. There's a little more space in between than we oftentimes see on these. So he's got some special sai hands. Let me see in here if I can get a hold of, because I put all the hands in this baggie. I can get a hold of some of the gripping hands that would have come with one of the previous figures. And of course, wouldn't you know, since I'm looking for the gripping hands, those are going to be the last ones that are going to want to show up. Yeah, okay, so here on this Michelangelo hand, you can see that the fingers are a little closer together versus this Raphael hand. Do you see what I'm talking about? And there's like this little bit of space almost where it looks like it could wrap around a sai. We'll have some fun with that in a little bit. All right, so let's get these. These are more the regular gripping hands. So there's a set of those, and that's the ones with the horizontal hinge on them. But now that I've got a set out that's the same color, you can kind of, I think, even see that a little bit easier. See that little bit of a space there. And then we have these solid fist hands. So there's those. All right, and that's all the accessories that were in this extra little blister underneath here. Let's move on. So Raphael has a slice of pizza, and it does look to me like it is identical to the ones that came with Leonardo and Donatello. But there are some slight differences. I didn't notice this before. I wasn't really paying that much attention, I guess. But they all have different colors of crust. So how did they all come from the same box? And I don't remember whose this was, but it might just be that it got warped in the package even. But one of these is just kind of more straight across, whereas the one that comes with Raphael, and I don't remember whose it was, they have like a little more drip in the front. The pointy part of the pizza is kind of starting to sag a little bit in the front. I'm guessing it's Leonardo's, because I was able to get Donatello's to fit just straight into the box. But I didn't notice on Leonardo's. So Leonardo and Raphael and Donatello do not come with identical slices of pizza. They're all different. Even though they do all seem based on the same sculpt, they've all got the pepperoni arranged in the same way. The paint applications are different. They're slightly different colors of paint. And like I said, Donatello's isn't quite as drippy in the front for whatever reason. But with Raphael, he's got a much glossier type of paint on here for both the pepperoni and the cheese. Like if we look at the one, I'm pretty sure is the Leonardo slice, and the Donatello one is kind of similar to this also. It's a little more matte finish. Like you can see, it's like almost like maybe like a semi-gloss or something like that. See that? But Raphael's is like super glossy. It looks very greasy. So maybe Leonardo and Donatello dabbed their pizza with a paper towel to get some of the excess grease off of it, but Raphael didn't bother. Maybe that's what happened. All right, so he's got a couple of extra sai in here. He's got 3 sets of sai overall, with the 2 that are on the weapons tree, and there's 2 that you can see are stuck into his belt in the figure, and then he's got these. And unfortunately, this seems to be fairly common in what I've seen, is his sai are just all warped to hell. Like, look at that. It looks like the Shredder picked up his sai and tucked him into his belt before he got kicked off of the rooftop and landed in the garbage truck, and Casey Jones flipped the lever. Oops. Because they are all bent up. Now, I might be able to fix these later on with a hairdryer, but I'm kind of worried because it does seem like it is kind of a little bit more of a rigid type of plastic. I'm kind of worried that like it might be kind of broken, or if not actually broken, kind of weakened, as it were, where it's just a very sharp bend at the front there, you see. But thankfully, not only did Raphael come with multiple type of sai, so the ones on the belt look like they're not too messed up, but and this might be why they did this. You might recall from when I opened up the Mousers, is that the Mousers came with a pair of sai, the ones with the black marks all over them. So if you want the painted sai, you can use those. They do have those black marks on them, but yeah, it is nice that we have an extra set of sai from a completely different set. So that gives you another option too, doesn't it? And obviously, Raphael is supposed to have those sai. That's not something that the Mousers themselves are supposed to use. So let's go ahead and get these other weapons out. So we have the Kama, which again, this was a common weapon that all the Ninja Turtles had in the original Playmates toy line. They all had this as an extra weapon. It's a pretty cool weapon. And this one's a little pointier and has a little bit more of a realistic type blade to it, rather than the Playmates one that was just kind of flat and not pointy. Oh, I meant to mention this also. Go ahead and take a little segue real quick. Is I did get this in the mail today from Captain Have Fun. Was generous enough to send me this. He had an extra Batman Returns Batman. So probably open this up next week. I'll probably open up this next week, and Catwoman and Penguin, since I have those. So that'll be we're finally gonna get back on some DC stuff. How exciting is that? All right, so again, thank you to Captain Have Fun for sending that to me. It was very kind of him. So here is Raphael's turtle communicator, and it is, I think, out of the three that I've seen before, it's the most different. It's a very dark green, and it's got red detailing rather than brown for the shell, and it has even more buttons painted in and lit up, probably because Donatello figured like Raphael would need a little bit of extra help. He's maybe thinks he's a little more thick than Leonardo. You're probably right. And very dark gray for the innards of it. So that's what that looks like. And then he does have the if I can fill the package. Oops, don't fall. Don't fall. Don't fall. It's a tiny little piece. I don't want to lose it in my couch. There's the closed version of it. So we'll go ahead and put those into our Super 7 accessory bag. And in fact, why don't I go ahead and put these into the Super 7 accessory bag while I'm thinking about it. And I've got all kinds of like commas and fist daggers here from going all the way back to Shredder. I haven't been putting all these in the bag. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that real quick. I don't want to lose any of these. And in fact, why don't I go ahead and put most of these Raphael hands in here while I'm thinking about it. Most of these Raphael hands in here, because I do want to have those with the space on them. But I don't need the fist hands. And so I'll keep those out with the space, and I'll keep the kind of splayed open hands. And whatever hands are on the figure, we'll see about that. All right, so then that's almost all the accessories out of here. We still got the throwing stars. And for anybody who have seen the previous videos where I was talking about these figures, these are the same throwing stars that come with the rest of the Turtles and Shredder. Little 5-pointed shurikens. And you can bet I'm going to put those in that accessory bag once I get them out. I don't want to lose them. They're tiny little things. Tiny little thing. And the figures, I don't think, can hold on to them very well. So, you know, it's not like I could display them with them if I wanted to. And then the head sculpt. And as I've mentioned before, my theory as to what the thought process was with these is that these are kind of supposed to be the Four Horsemen's versions of the Ninja Turtles. If you know, we've seen a few versions of the Turtles from the Four Horsemen before, going all the way back to the original NECA Mirage figures, which are still my favorite figures of the boys. And Raphael has the skin color that matches up closest to those, interestingly enough. But yeah, rather than being beholden to a comic book design or a cartoon design or a previous toys design or a movie or anything like that, I think this is just the Four Horsemen doing their own version of the boys, like without having to be beholden to being on model to anything else. Kami Medea is here and says, "Hello, Alan. How's it going?" It's going pretty well. And then says, "Great figures." Yeah, I've really been enjoying these. I think that they did a great job with these Ninja Turtles figures. I'm pretty happy with them. Makes me glad that I made this decision. As I've mentioned before, what the idea was is that I was going to get at least the first wave of Playmates figures, or at least SUPER7's version of that first wave. So that meant all 4 turtles. There's a twist tie holding him in the middle, and go and get that out. And it's got a little plastic piece in there to make sure it doesn't interfere too much with his belt and the weapons on there. But yeah, I wanted to get at least the first wave of the original Playmates figures, which means all 4 turtles, Splinter, April, the Shredder, Bebop, Rocksteady, and the Foot Soldier. And I currently have them all except the Foot Soldier. So I need to get Foot Soldier. And then Damien is Story. Am I saying that right? Ristori. I'm missing an R. Curse my dyslexia. Damien Ristori. Am I saying that right? Asks, hey, Alan, do you have the SUPER7 Rat King? If so, is any good? No, I don't have the Rat King yet, although he is one of the ones I was thinking about picking up. He does seem like, okay, he says fine, so I guess I got it all right. But I don't like mispronouncing people's names. It's a pet peeve of mine. I like to make sure I say people's names right if I can say them. All right, but yeah, that is one I was looking into getting, and he is a little more pricey in the aftermarket right now. So I'm seriously considering getting the Rat King. Although I don't know if I'm going to yet. Now, interesting thing about the Rat King is they did do their own head design where he looks a little more like a sexy Rat King. Like he's a little more anime, I guess. I don't know. But if there's ever a character that didn't need to have a sexy version, it's the Rat King. The Rat King should just be an ugly mofo. Like, you know what I mean? But they did. I don't know if this was always the plan, and they just didn't have the render ready to show us at first, or if it was in response to the criticisms that that sexy Rat King head got. But they did wind up including a head in there that looks much more like the original figure, and it's all in his ugly glory, and he looks just hideous. So when I saw that head, then I was like, okay, I think I might like to have this Rat King figure now, because he just looks nice and ugly. Yeah, you get 3 different head sculpts. That's right. So yeah, I would have the ugly head on there. That's just me. But yeah, if I run across one that is affordable, then I definitely would like to pick that one up. But he seems like he's gotten pretty pricey in the aftermarket. But we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. You know what? I jumped the gun a little bit, because really I should have kept one of these fist daggers out, shouldn't I? Because Raphael has the little sheath to hold this fist dagger on the back. And I don't even know if this is. I don't think it is, because the brown is kind of like probably showing him how he once was. Thanks, Alan. Well, you're welcome. Yeah, that might be the case. It might be something where like they going for, like, his younger days or something like that. I don't know. But like, I always think the Rat King is being like an ugly dude. I kind of think like they made him a little more handsome on the original cartoon than he was in the original Mirage comics, where he's just really gross looking. And I like NECA's version of the Mirage comics Rat King too. That's also a great figure. So I'll probably get a Rat King at one point, and I wouldn't mind having either one of those. I would kind of like to have both of them. But yeah, Raphael is the only one that came with any kind of bespoke storage in his belt for any of the extra weapons. I mean, technically, you could probably fit the comma into Michelangelo or Donatello's weapon storage, because the handle's about the same size as the bow or the nunchucks. But it's still like storage that's made for the bow or the nunchucks. Raphael was the only figure in the original wave that had space for not just his own accessories, but the one of the extra accessories too. And that makes sense to me because, like I said, Raphael seems like to me like the one that would most likely have a side piece. And now that I've got it out of the package and I don't have to worry about them falling out, we can go ahead and put the Psy back into the front sheaths so we can see him holding those. And like I said about Leonardo, they're kind of perfunctory sheaths. They're just kind of little straps that hold the Psy to his belt. But that was good enough for us when we were kids. We just needed something to hold it. It didn't need to look fancy. And usually Raphael doesn't have like a proper sheath for his Psy anyway. He just kind of tucks them into his belt. That's the way he did on the cartoon. And that's the way I always remember him doing it on the in the comic book. He just kind of would tuck his Psy into his belt. And of course, in the movie, he had little loops attached onto his belt to hold his Psy. So there we go. That's how that works. Now, the hands that are on the figure are the kind of regular gripping hands with the vertical hinge, and that is to be expected because that's what the other boys have. But I'm going to go ahead and swap these hands out because I want to try out these hands with the little bit of extra space to be holding his Psy in between his fingers. And of course, Psy are meant to be held in lots of different positions as one is using them in their fighting. And Psy, interestingly enough, for a character that is known to be a hothead and probably the most violent and brutal of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Psy are actually designed to be completely defensive weapons. They're meant to go up against samurai swords, ninja swords, katana, and they're meant to break swords. And here we can see how he can hold these Psy in between his fingers in a very cool way. How about that? So let's go ahead and swap the other. Since these are hands that are designed specifically for Raphael, so we might as well use them, right? Camille Madi says, I like NECA Rat King too. So yeah, so he gets our seal of approval, doesn't he? So I'm going to see if I can get him to hold this one in a slightly different way. We're going to see if we can put this side prong in between. You know, get all fancy with it. And the hands are still kind of rigid on this guy. And I do wish that they'd used a slightly more pliable type of plastic, because it would make getting these weapons into the hands a lot easier. But I'm trying to get a little fancy with this one, and it's not quite working. It's trying to bend those prongs out a little bit. I don't want to do that, so we'll do something a little different. This is how I have. You might have seen earlier when I held him up. This is how I have the Psy posed in his hands on the NECA Mirage figure, and kind of get the handle in between. If I can get this around, I don't think there's quite enough space to get this in there because the prongs are a bit more narrow. But I do like that position. But I don't know if I'm going to quite get it to fit. I think it's going to bend the prongs up a bit too much. Maybe if I can... No, I don't want to chance it. I don't want to take a chance on breaking it. But it's still... It's a cool pose like that, even if he doesn't have it in his hand all the way. And... But yeah, I think it's more designed for this kind of pose there. So... it does that fairly well. And I should probably say that, like, out of the original Playmates Turtles, I kind of feel like Raphael was the one they actually kind of dropped the ball on the accessories with. Like, Leonardo's katana swords were good, and it's kind of impossible to mess up a bow staff. And yeah, it would have been nice to have like chains in between the sticks on the nunchucks. But I still felt like those were pretty decent toy nunchucks, even if it was just a plastic cord that was on them. But Raphael's Sai looked like they were designed by somebody who just kind of looked at the drawing and said, "Oh yeah, it's like a knife." And Sai aren't really supposed to be kind of like knives. They're kind of like spikes or prongs or something like that. They're not really like bladed weapons per se. So Four Horsemen and Super 7 managed to do a little bit more of a realistic version of a Sai than what the original Playmates figure had. But it does look really cool holding those, doesn't he? Yeah, there we go. So, and one other difference that I noticed between, I don't know why this is, but all the other turtles seem to have the same dark green kind of turtle shell like the original figures had. So we can see on my original Donatello there. And for whatever reason, Raphael's shell is brown. Why is it brown? I have no idea. You know, like even if they wanted to like give them all brown shells, I would have been like, yeah, that's not really what the original figure had, but whatever. It still looks cool. And it does still look cool. But it's strange to me that like they all have the same color shell except for Raphael. Why does Raphael the only one who has a brown shell? It would make more sense to me if they all had different shell colors. Like maybe Michelangelo's shell is like a really dark green, and Donatello would have the brown shell because he's a little more brownish, and like Leonardo would have like a kind of a lighter green shell. That kind of thing would make sense to me. But for some reason, Raphael's the only one that has a brown shell, and that strikes me as kind of odd. Bobby Wald is here, and he says, how come they don't have the paint marks on their shells that April O'Neil gave them when they were still regular turtles in a fishbowl? Because April O'Neil never met them until they were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's why. She did not know them when they were regular turtles. They were not her pet turtles. Her dad was not experimenting on them. And the Shredder is not a white guy who got re-edited into the last minute to be a Japanese guy who had an adopted white son. Not according to Megan Fox. Well, Megan Fox ain't exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer, I hate to tell you. Megan Fox. Megan Fox is no April O'Neil. All right, so let's talk about the articulation on this guy. Raphael can look up about that far, look down about that far. Tilts his head kind of quickly from side to side. Rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders. And they raise up to the sides about that far. Maybe a little further. But like I said, these shoulder joints tend to be kind of stiff, and I'm not sure exactly how far they can go up because I tend to worry that I'm going to tilt it up too far, but they go up at least that far, so that's good. And then he's got a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. He's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow that bends in about that far, not quite 90 degrees, but pretty close to it. And then that rotates all the way around at a slight bit of an angle. I think the elbow would bend a little bit further if the elbow pad wasn't in the way, but and the knee pad is the same. We'll see that in a minute. So then the wrists rotate all the way around, and you can see these hands have a horizontal hinge on them. Unfortunately, he does not come with an extra set of these hands that have the vertical hinge on them, but hey, he's got like an extra set of hands that the other boys don't have. So I'm not going to complain about it. I'm just pointing out that if you would like to have these hands on a vertical hinge, they don't exist. Sorry. And he does have some waist articulation underneath that shell of his, so he can rotate back and forth about that far. I think technically this can rotate all the way around, but it's going to bump into the shell, and I don't really want to do that, so I'm not going to do that. You can do the splits no problem, except for this leg seems like it's a little stiff. There we go. All right, you can do the splits no problem. Jean-Claude Van Damme, eat your heart out. But it does seem like I said this particular joint is a little more stiff than the other boys as far as that goes. But I was still able to get it to move, so that's fine. Raphael can kick up about that far, which is very good considering how he's got that shell. Very good range of articulation there. Does kind of remind me now of one of the publicity stills they had for the original movie where they had Raphael jumping up in the air and kicking forward. That's kind of cool. So anyway, knee articulation. Again, not quite 90 degrees. That knee pad kind of gets in the way there, unfortunately. And that does rotate all the way around where the knee meets the thigh rather than where the thigh meets the knee. So not where it's actually useful. I don't like the way that they set up the knee articulation on these figures. That would be my one criticism as far as the articulation goes. Not just a nitpick. like I said, I can't quite get these elbows to or knees to bend 90 degrees because of the knee pads. To me, that's a nitpick. It's almost 90 degrees. It's close enough to me for 90 degrees. But they should have put the knee. They should have the knee joint where the knee meets the shin rather than where the knee meets the thigh, because that would have made the articulation better, I think. Raphael's foot can point down about that far, point up about that far, and then of course that rotates all the way around. So yeah, these are mostly really well articulated figures, but that is a criticism that I have, is that like it would have been better if they'd placed the knee joint elsewhere. I think that would have looked a lot better. But man, he's a cool looking figure. He's a very impressive looking figure. And he does have that head sculpt that reminds me a lot of that original Playmates head sculpt, which I thought was an excellent head sculpt. And like I said, to me, it's one of the better head sculpts. I'm not sure who had the best head sculpt between Raphael and Donatello in the original Playmates line. But those were definitely the two best, I think. Bobby Old says, I got to meet Rob Paulson, who was the voice of Raphael, but I'm more of a G.I. Joe fan, so I had him sign my snow job, and he was talking about that was the very first voice acting gig on G.I. Joe. That's yeah, I love him as snow job, where he has that kind of like Boston accent. I always remember his delivery of the line, fresh snowy air. I never thought I'd smell it again. almost like he's doing like a John F. Kennedy kind of thing. You know, I really liked him as Snow Job. And of course, the other character I think about him doing a lot on G.I. Joe, especially because like for the longest time, the only thing we had on G.I. Joe on DVD was the animated movie. It took him forever to get the cartoon out on DVD. The actual cartoon series, I mean. But for the longest time, all I had was the movie, and he's Tunnel Rat in the movie. So I really like him as Tunnel Rat. Tunnel Rat actually is probably closer to the comic book version of Raphael, because he definitely has that little bit of a bitter edge to him. So, you know. Camille Madi agrees that it is a beautiful head sculpt. But yeah, Rob Paulson is a legend. I suggest you guys look this up if you've never seen it. But there's a really great from a convention. There's a really great video of Kevin Conroy as Batman, and Robert Paulson plays Commissioner Gordon, and they do the dialogue from the end of Dark Knight, and it's really cool. And Robert Paulson does a great Commissioner Gordon. I don't know if I've ever heard him do Commissioner Gordon in any official capacity, but maybe it's something they might want to consider on some kind of Batman cartoon in the future, because Robert Paulson did a great Commissioner Gordon. That's what I got to say about that. But like Robert Paulson, again, very famous, very prolific voice actor. I think probably other than Raphael, and maybe even including Raphael, he's best known for the voice of Yakko Warner on Animaniacs. And I remember watching Animaniacs for the first time, like, Raphael, that's Raphael right there. But he's done a lot of voice acting work. Dude's a legend. So you had Barry Gordon as Donatello. You had Townsend Coleman as Michelangelo, and you had Cam Clark as Leonardo. And of course, Cam Clark did another character that we all know I'm a big fan of, right? Yeah, he was the 2000X He-Man. So yeah, like a very talented voice cast there. And again, I want to give another shout out to James Avery, who's an actor that I was always a big fan of and always had a lot of respect for. And he was Uncle Phil on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So that was another role that he was very well known for. And I was always a big fan of that guy. And we lost him too soon. Rest in peace, James Avery. So anyway, that brings our look at the Super 7 Ninja Turtles to a close, at least for now, until I can get a foot soldier, or maybe if I'm lucky, the Rat King. And there's a few other there's a few other figures from this line that I'm fairly interested in. Speaking of Raphael himself, they do have the one with the trench coat and the hat, and that one's fairly inexpensive on Big Bad Toy Store right now. So I might like to get that one sometime in the future. And of course, we already talked about the Rat King and Slash. We talked about Slash a little bit on the previous episode. I might try to get that version of Slash too. Fireflower Films 2010 is here and says Raphael was always awesome. Indeed, he was from the very first issue. I kind of feel like him and Leonardo were the ones that got the most character development in that first issue, because of course Leonardo was the leader, so he did most of the narration in that comic, so he definitely got a lot of character development in that story. And Raphael got to do a little bit of narration and got to do a little segment where he talks, and we get to see a little bit more of his character. It's the next issue after that where we start to get the idea that Donatello is a tech guy. And they established that early on in the issue, where you see him sitting in the background soldering on something, like he's working on something. So they did a good job with the setting up in that issue that that Donatello was the tech guy, because they needed to have a tech guy later on with dealing with the Mousers. So that's your gun on the mantelpiece. It's like they don't just spring it out of nowhere later on in the story where Donatello is like, oh, I know how to do machines. No, they show him doing machines in the background earlier in the story. And Camille Madi says, thanks, Alan. Have a great day. Well, I hope you have a great day too. Always glad when you stop by. The Flower Films 2010 says Slash and Donatello are my favorites. Yeah, I love Donatello. I love them all. They're all great. But Donatello is one that I kind of feel like over the past few years, like my appreciation for Donatello has grown a bit. Like I said, Donatello is my third favorite Ninja Turtle. Nobody's your most favorite Ninja Turtle, and there's no wrong answer to this. But I like to ask people who their favorite Ninja Turtle is, because it'll tell you a little bit about them. But yeah, like for me, my tiers, and these are just kind of divided by hairs. I love all these guys. I got Raphael, Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo. So the Flower Fame says, I pre-ordered the newer reissues. I'm hyped for Usagi and Scaletail. Usagi Yojimbo is definitely a character that I would need to get represented in this scale, because I do love that character. Just besides even just being a Ninja Turtle character, he's got his own comic book, which is awesome. And but I didn't find out about him until he got his own action figure in the Ninja Turtles line, and then I looked into him and found out, oh, he's a character that pre-exists. He's not just some kind of supporting character for the Ninja Turtle. He's got his own thing going on, so that's cool. And But yeah, I definitely want to get the I know NECA did some good Usagi Yojimbo figures, and I would like it. I don't think Super 7's done an Usagi yet, but I would really like it if they did an Usagi in the style of the original Playmates toy. NECA did do a samurai armor Usagi, which I kind of feel like would kind of scratch that itch for me. But I'd like to have one that was really accurate to the original toy. And the original toy was not particularly accurate to his design in the comics. I think they were going for something a little more toyetic, if you know what I mean, where with the armor and everything. But I still have a lot of nostalgia for that version of Usagi. I think that was a good design. And Bobby Wald says Metalhead was my favorite turtle. So they do have a Metalhead in this line. Who knows? I might wind up picking that one up at some point. I know they had two different versions of Metalhead at Super 7. They had the regular version, and they had one that was, for whatever reason, had a more Michelangelo inspired color scheme. I'm not sure what the thought process was with that. I'm not sure if it's Michelangelo got turned into a robot or the robot got turned into Michelangelo. I don't know. It's a pretty cool looking figure, though. I ran across it a lot when I was looking for Michelangelo on eBay. And I got to tell you, I don't know if I mentioned this in the video. Michelangelo was the hardest one of these for me to get a hold of, especially for a good price. And I mentioned before how like that figure did not have the mailer and did not have the slip cover, and it was still the most expensive of these that I bought. Like I think with Donatello, even though that was a previously open figure, I think I still paid about retail for him. So he was fairly expensive. It was maybe a little less than retail. I don't remember right now, but it wasn't more than retail. I'll tell you that much. And like I said, Leonardo and Raphael, those are both available on Big Bad Toy Store for a little bit less than retail. I think those were like less than 30 a piece. So I got a good deal on Leonardo and Raphael. But Donatello or Michelangelo, yeah, he was pricey. I think he was like $10 above retail, and like I said, he wasn't even in the complete packaging. Uh, Fireflower Film says, "I'm from the UK. Everything past 1990 is hard to find. Usagi often turns up broken. Oh, and Mondo and Mona Lisa are nowhere to be found." Yeah, Mona Lisa's a hard one to find over here too, because she came out during the tail end of the line. I wish even that I'd managed to get one even at the time. But I was unable to. I always liked that character. I always thought she was really cool. So you know, I think she's one that like Peter Laird didn't care for Mona Lisa, so she didn't get used at all, hardly in the time where like he was in full control of the of the franchise, unfortunately. But she did get brought back in the 2012 cartoon, although they gave her a completely different origin and completely redesigned her. Basically, the only things I think that she had in common with the original Mona Lisa was that like she was a female lizard who was romantically involved with Raphael, and her name was Mona Lisa. But I like the original one. I like the original. The 2012 one was fine. I didn't have a problem with her necessarily, but I like the original one, and that's the one that I tend to think of when I think of that character. But anyway, that's before I go, I don't know if CS the director is gonna see this, because I was kind of hoping he'd pop by, because I promised him that I would get the Playmates Classics figure out so we could see how well they scale. And he's just, like I said, I figured he'd be shorter. He's just a little bit shorter than the Playmates Classics version, so you can get a look at how those scale together. And I always felt like these figures were a little taller than they needed to be. But there's how those scale together, and we might as well get a look at, even though I don't remember if I did this or not. He's a little bit taller than the NECA Four Horsemen Mirage versions. So yeah, that's how those scale up. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all that fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this figure and the character of Raphael in general. Next episode, I'm going to be back with something completely different, and I haven't decided what yet. But I know I got a lot of Masters of the Universe stuff. I know I got a lot of DC stuff. I showed you the Batman figure earlier that Captain Have Fun was generous enough to send to me. Again, thanks to him for that. So we'll have him opened up probably sometime next week. Because I want to do him and Catwoman and Penguin all together. So we'll have him. We'll open him up next week. But I do have a lot of other cool DC stuff to open, and I've got a lot of Masters of the Universe stuff that I got in. And March 9th is my sister's birthday, like I said. So I had a special item to unbox in honor of my sister's birthday, which will seem like an odd choice for something like that, but it'll make sense once I tell the story. So anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye. Okay.